at least there is some good news to discuss in the transfer portal for Tennessee. Um, Two names in particular that Tennessee landed in the portal last week. First two guys that Tennessee landed in the portal, either spring or winter window on the defensive end. First, and I believe this was right after our show last week, Tennessee picked up Grand Valley State defensive lineman Josh Shell. Watched a few highlights on him, just what I could find, mostly stuff from high school. Looks like a very athletic kid. And again, we trust Rodney Garner around here. This is a guy that he's really got an eye for the talent on the defensive front over the years, no matter where he's been, whether it's Auburn, Georgia, or back here at Tennessee. He's been a great identifier of talent, and if this is a diamond in the rough that he thinks he's stumbled upon, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, and on paper, I mean, it might not stand out as a big acquisition considering that, I mean, he was initially listed as a 2-star, and then once he was in the transfer portal, that he got bumped up to a 3-star. But like you said, I mean, he's shown some athleticism and not too many highlights that you can find of him in college. But from what it's seen, I mean, I've seen him overpowered offensive tackles. He seems to be pretty quick. And one thing that I saw that stood out is he had 6 pass deflections last year. And this is not like your traditional like edge rusher either. I mean, he's on the bigger side, and I've heard that he can play defensive tackle alongside defensive end, and he got 6 pass deflections. And believe it or not, he actually got 4 in one game in week 9. I couldn't figure out who the opponent was, but he got 4 pass deflections in one game.
He didn't have a 6'6" volleyball player throwing downward the entire time, did he?
No, he
that
did
happened
not.
A few times this past year for Tennessee. Use your imagination to figure out who I'm talking about.
Oh, I can only imagine. and then you brought up Rodney Garner too. While I was doing research on Josh Shell, because of course I've never heard of him before, with him being a Division II transfer, but I've seen some interesting things surrounding him and Rodney Garner. Like there was this one quote that I'm reading here that he was saying that Rodney Garner is one of the best coaches in the country. He's been in the SEC for about 36 years now. So you can't say anybody has any more experience. So super grateful to be coached by him. And then later on in the interview, and this was with VolQuest, he went on to say, I really appreciate him. Just keep it 100%. He's not going to blank. He said a bad word. He's not going to blank you. And that was definitely the biggest thing for me. So Josh Shell is coming to Tennessee, and he has high regards for Rodney Garner. And as we've mentioned earlier, I think Tennessee fans should believe in Rodney Garner until there's a reason not to. And even though, like I said, not very big name, not recognizable name, but I'm excited by this acquisition. And I believe that Rodney Garner's got something cooking.
Yeah. And Tennessee needs at least some help on the defensive line this year in terms of guys stepping up. Because you've got a couple names this year of guys like Josh Josephs, who are really expected to make a big jump, or Tyree West being another one on the defensive line. But there are some other younger players on that defensive front, like David Hobbs, who have been in and out of the mixture just on different downs in a series over the past year, which it's been good to get those guys in, but Tennessee's going to need to see them make big jumps, and you need some other, I guess, veteran leadership as well. So maybe Shell provides that too. I don't know how quickly he'll be on the field, but we can assume that Tennessee will be playing a lot of guys on the defensive front this year.
And the fact that he can line up at end and tackle is going to be pretty beneficial too. And Tennessee, as of late, has had smaller edge rushers. I mean, I know James Pierce was 6'5", but I mean, he's only like 240 soaking wet. So we're going to have Tennessee's going to have more size at the end position than they typically have, or at least with him, and, interchangeably move him. If one guy's giving him problems on the offensive line, fine, move him inside, let him go there and see if he can get open. I mean, I think it's beneficial to have a player that can play more than one position on there, especially when you're rotating as many guys as Tennessee does. I mean, he could go in for one play, get taken out, put Jordan Ross in or something, then get moved right back to tackle. I mean, I like the acquisition a lot, and I'm very excited to see, especially coming from like a lineman standpoint, because that's what I played in high school. So I'm like a little biased. I really like seeing dominant defensive ends and defensive linemen. So I'm hoping that he could contribute to Tennessee this season.
Yeah. Jordan, I obviously didn't play football as long as you did, but I was also on the defensive line at one point or another. And let me tell you, it's a fun position to play.
So
It's
much
really
fun.
fun. It's way more fun than offensive line because you're just going out there and you're just trying to find your way to the quarterback as quickly as possible, which is why it's so enjoyable because I don't know, there's just not as much of a pressure element to it, I
It's
guess you could
more
say.
it's more of like a backyard football kind of feel because you don't have to think too much. Yeah, you have to memorize a little bit of plays and stuff and know what gap you're going to go to.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's like that saying, see ball, get ball. That's pretty much the whole job of a defensive lineman. And it's a blast. It's a
Yeah.
blast.
Yeah. Because offensive line, you're just trying to do your best to make sure the guy doesn't get to the quarterback, and you're trying to back up, you're retreating and hoping you're not stumbling into the quarterback the entire time. And some guys really like that. In fact, the guys who play on offensive line really enjoy it. But once I made the switch to defense, I just said, we're never going back. We're never going back to the offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun if you play offensive line, if you're a big mauler, but I obviously was not that. So I was off. Every time I put my hand in the dirt, I was terrified, especially when we had to like play against some people that were like committed to Memphis that were like 6'4", like 270. I'm like, I'm 5'8", like 150 on a good day. And I'm out here having to try to block this dude that's got like 20 offers. And I remember the first varsity game I ever got on the field, a Memphis defensive end picked me up. I was the pulling guard. I came around. He literally grabbed me by my shoulder pads, picked me up, lifted me into the air, threw me on the ground, and then he helped me up and he said, "I'm sorry about that, bro." And I was like, "Hey, you're
Don't
just doing your thing."
apologize.
I was like, "Don't apologize. This is why you're playing college football." But
You know what you
dang.
did?
Yeah, but dang, I don't want to have to hear it from my coach after this.
No. So yes, that's our defensive line stories for the week. I don't have any that dramatic. I didn't play against any guys, at least in high school. I didn't make it to high school, but no, I didn't play against many commitments, even in a lower level of football, or guys that eventually went on to commit to colleges when I was a kid. But anyway, that's our defensive line stories for the week. But there was one other major acquisition for Tennessee in the defensive side of the ball, and this one I think there's some legitimate excitement about, and that is Colorado defensive back Colton Hood, who Jordan kind of teased earlier. Started his career at Auburn, just didn't really see the field there. Goes to Colorado, and was a pretty nice piece for them last year in the secondary. Had quite a few tackles, I believe 6 pass breakups and 2 interceptions. Only saw the 1 interception in a highlight reel, and was a nice play by him, although he did, unfortunately, Daniel Jones himself, if you know what I mean. But again, a good pickup for a Tennessee DB room that was hurting a little bit for depth at one point or another.
Yeah, and I haven't seen too much of his film since the news is so recent, but I did see that he had 105 interception return yards last season, which for only having 2 interceptions means that he must have been pretty electric with the ball in his hands.
Yeah.
And like we've mentioned before, defensive back, Tennessee's a little thin right now. So, I mean, perfect player to get in the portal. And I've been on Reddit a little bit and seeing on Tennessee's subreddit, and I've seen some Colorado fans or Colorado students chime in on there, and they said that he's a pretty talented player and that we should be excited about it. So hearing that from Colorado itself is pretty exciting to hear as well, especially when you know who was lined up cross-eyed from him. So hearing something like that, I mean, as everyone knows, like his teammate won the Heisman Trophy last year. And I bring that up too because He did play pretty well for Colorado. It'll be interesting to see how he is when he comes to Tennessee secondary, when he might be like the main guy, like him and Jermod McCoy, will probably be Tennessee's two starting corners last year. And they've had some pretty similar stats. I mean, McCoy had a couple more interceptions, but pretty similar stats overall. But to play devil's advocate, was Hood's stats good because he was lined up across from Travis Hunter and quarterbacks are wanting to throw in his direction instead of Hunter? Or is he actually really just that guy? And I guess Tennessee will find out during this season.
Yeah, well, there's a couple things going on here, right? Because obviously, Hunter is really good at Colorado last season on both ends, both as a receiver and a DB. So they were trying to go toward the guys who were lined up against Colton Hood over the course of the season. Jermod McCoy, we know, is very good as well. He may not have the star name recognition that Travis Hunter did, but he was a terrific corner for Tennessee. I mean, one of the best ones we've seen here of late this past season. And then the other thing you got to wonder about, just because even though he announced his intent to enter, he never did. Ricky Gibson had a very nice season last year, kind of under the radar just because of everything McCoy did. So how does he factor into all of this? So I don't know. You could move one of those guys around to a safety spot. Jordan Thomas, we're assuming, is back from injury as well. So you've got at least a good group of starters. There's just not a whole lot of depth to go around the secondary right now.
I mean, I think it's a good problem for Tennessee to have, to be wondering where to fit in Ricky Gibson, especially when, like, last week we were concerned about Tennessee's defensive back room. It will be interesting to see who they plug and move around and who will end up being starting this season. But it is nice for Tennessee to be able to get some depth here. And I know last week I mentioned, like, I wasn't too concerned because I was just curious. I was like, Josh Heupel's just is acting weird, not pulling the gun on a defensive back when it's a glaring issue. So I was thinking, like, just making assumptions, thinking that, like, maybe it could be a good thing for Tennessee. Maybe we don't need another defensive back. But ultimately Tennessee did. And I don't know. I'm pretty excited to see how Colton Hood does. And just, like, everything that I've read about him is got me excited. And, like, Pro Football Focus had some stuff on him too. Apparently the entire season he didn't allow a single touchdown. And
that's good.
Yeah. And in addition to that, only allowed a 51.7 passer rating, which I don't know. Like, Tennessee, I've been watching Tennessee football since 2009. I could name maybe a handful of corners that were actually, like, pretty good at Tennessee for the most part. I mean, like, the first person that comes to my mind is, like, Cam Sutton's probably the best like, Jermod McCoy is probably the best corner we've had since Cam Sutton, in my opinion. So getting a guy like this in the portal has got me a little excited, because through my whole entire time watching Tennessee football, I mean, Eric Berry's really been, like, the one key thing that's like stood out. And besides that, I mean, like I said, Cam Sutton, maybe a few people here and there. Like, I liked Prentice Wagner back in the day, but I mean, was he a household
I was going to mention him.
Like, there's a couple of good guys, but it's not been a consistent position that Tennessee's been good at.
Yeah, because when they were here, guys like Bryce Thompson and Alontae Taylor, they were very Jekyll and Hyde, it felt like. And you had that with some of the more recent guys like Kamal Hadden. I think he was unfairly scapegoated for the early part of his career here, and ended up, when he went down against Alabama, that ended up being an injury that really, really hurt Tennessee's secondary in 2023. So you've had some guys that have shown flashes here at Tennessee over the years. It's not consistent. It's hard to find good corners in football just because it's a mentally, you have to have amnesia. We talk about it all the time. It's just not a very easy position to play, because, like, if you can't just flush the previous play and then move on to the next one, then that receiver can get into your head quick, and you could end up being a duck pulling a truck. I don't know. Just trying to think. Like, it felt like Alabama and LSU had all the really good ones when we were growing up. Maybe Georgia
Yeah.
had a few in there too.
Ohio State had some good
Yeah,
ones.
yeah, they had some good ones for a while, but um, maybe Colton Hood can etch his name into a group of names of really good corners that have played at Tennessee over the years. Um, that's all the portal notes that we have as far as guys leaving and committing to Tennessee. There was one target, Jonathan Brady, a Cal wide receiver, who chose Indiana over Tennessee, which maybe it's just the fact that Signetti's offense was terrific last season. But I don't ever remember Tennessee losing recruiting or just battles in general to Indiana in football, because portal stuff is recruiting to a degree. But I don't know, how disappointed are you that Tennessee has not found a receiver in this window of the portal? I know they got Amari Jefferson in the last window. I don't know how much he'll really do this season, but uh, is there anybody on your wish list that you're really concerned Tennessee missed out on?
Not one player in particular. Of course, it would be nice for Tennessee to have acquired another receiver in the portal. But like I've mentioned on previous podcasts before, I can't recall a time where Tennessee's ever struggled at receiver. So until something happens otherwise, I'm just led to believe that Tennessee will figure it out, no matter what. And Tennessee's got some talented guys on the roster too. Like, we still haven't gotten to see the full potential of Mike Matthews yet. And Mike Matthews could knock it out of the park this year and be a phenomenal receiver, if Tennessee has a quarterback that can throw it to him efficiently. And then heard lots of great things about Staley in the offseason. I'm not as familiar with him and his game, but I think he was a 4-star coming out of high school.
Mm-hmm.
And every single quote that I've read about him has been positive. And the fact that he stood and stayed with the team too when everyone else was leaving said a lot as well. And then Amari Jefferson, Alabama, they don't recruit just anybody. So the fact that he was playing there, still don't know much about him either. But I mean, the fact that he played at Alabama is enough to get a little excited, I would say. So, I mean,
Yeah,
Tennessee's got some talented guys there. I think Tennessee will figure it out. It probably would have been good to have at least one other receiver, but even if they don't, maybe one of the running backs can step up this year and become an efficient pass catcher.
yeah. And at wide receiver too, and I don't say this disrespectfully, but um, you look at the NFL drafts, it's somewhat frowned upon to take wide receivers in the first round. Like, there are some wide receivers that really stand out that you just can't pass up on. Guys like Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, they exist. Don't get me wrong. Travis Hunter this year, just a guy that's, a unicorn of a football player. But for the most part, you can get away with having receivers who maybe on paper don't stand out as much, and then they just come out and really surprise you and have terrific seasons. And that's a lot of what Tennessee's had over the years, at least recently. Again, we listed a lot of them off last week. Guys like Marquez North, Josh Palmer, another big one
Pig
when he was
Howard.
here in Tennessee. Yeah, guys that just were kind of under the radar players here, but overall very nice receivers for Tennessee back when they played here.
Yeah, and then another one that's coming to my mind too, one of my favorites when I was a kid, Zach Rogers. He
Oh
was
yeah,
like very underrated because Tennessee was shuffling like Justin Hunter, Derrick Rogers, Cordell Patterson, some big names there. And I thought that he flew under the radar too. I mean, he had that big game against NC State where Tyler Bray went crazy. I always look back at that with fond memories, especially because during those times, Tennessee didn't have much to cheer for. So you'd take any win back then.
Posty in the comments says, I'm just concerned that we can even get depth pieces at receiver in the portal. Yeah, that is a reasonable concern, but the truth is Josh Heupel just doesn't play very many guys at wide receiver if you think about it. So maybe that's just not something he wants to do. Maybe something that he doesn't want to explore. He just wants to get his younger guys in. I don't know if this is a philosophy or just the fact that this staff is in fact missing on big time wide receivers. I'm sure that will present itself once the season begins.
Well, I feel like it's just Josh Heupel's scheme, because like last season, there's several situations where Mike Matthews could have been on the field, but I think he got like 5 targets the entire season.
Yeah.
So I just feel like it's Josh Heupel's scheme more than anything. If he wanted to, I mean, if he thought that it would be a smart idea to play more receivers, then I feel like he would have done that.
Yeah, he just never has played a whole lot of receiver. It's at most 4 guys. It feels like every single year, and maybe that changes if somebody gets injured. But it's just not been something they've wanted to do. Doesn't
And you
feel like.
and you can maybe argue that it's counterintuitive too because of things like injuries and stuff too. Like seeing Brew McCoy struggle a little bit with that, Thornton and everything. Um, Maybe Tennessee should play more receivers, but I don't think that I know more than Josh Heupel or any of these other college football coaches. So I would just put all of that into his hands.
Yeah, maybe we don't know more than them. I know that's what a lot of us have to say after a while, but at the same time, it's like Jalen Hyatt was not his recruit. I know he went on to win the Bolitnikoff, and that was that was incredible for this team and this program to have that done. But at the same time, it's like how does this staff really do with the talent it brings in? Because I look at some of the bad coaches that Tennessee has had here lately, and believe it or not, they've had some good talent.
Arguably more than Josh Heupel
Yeah,
has had.
that's what I'm trying to say. Like they've had some really really talented teams over the years. Like Jeremy Pruitt, Butch Jones, they were both terrific recruiters. They just obviously weren't much of head coaches. Now, if Josh Heupel were coaching those teams, I think you'd be looking at some pretty terrific Tennessee teams in those years. If you were to trade this roster with any of the other coaches, and if those coaches can't do well with the super talented rosters they were bringing in, then I mean, what is Butch Jones and Jeremy Pruitt doing? Are they even winning 4 games with this roster? And I'm not knocking Tennessee's roster at all. I do think they have some very nice pieces, but I just look at what Tennessee had in those years and the amount of talent that they had coming in at that point in time, and it's just like, do we really believe that the ceiling on this team is higher than some of the ones they had then that were just held back because of poor coaching?
And it hurts my feelings to hear those hypotheticals because I've had these thoughts before. Like, what if Josh Heupel was the head coach back when Tyler Bray was there and he had Justin Hunter to throw to, Michael Rivera, Derek Rogers, Cordell Patterson, Zach Rogers, as we mentioned. They had 5 offensive linemen that ended up becoming starters in the NFL at one point or another. James Stone, all of them. Like, Tennessee's offense
Tiny?
was, yeah, Anthony, or not Anthony Richardson,
Yeah,
but
Antonio
yeah,
Richardson.
Antonio Richardson. Tennessee had some studs there, and the defense was the big thing holding back. I remember one year, can't remember what season it was, but I think if you ended the game at halftime, Tennessee would have been undefeated up until one point of the season.
Oh dear.
Like then, as soon as the second half would roll through, Derek Dooley's teams would get ran through. And
yeah, well, it'd be the opposite with Butch Jones in 16, where if the game ended at halftime, they would have lost a lot of them, especially in the front half of the season.
Yeah, and then Butch Jones had a ton of talent too. Like we've mentioned before, like how many players that like if just went to the NFL and ended up being good. And I'm like, well, where was this at Tennessee? Like Alontae Taylor and Bryce Thompson, like you mentioned, like they had flashes and stuff. But I mean, especially with like what Alontae Taylor's doing in the NFL, and we've mentioned before, like Shy Tuttle, it's like, where was all of that at Tennessee?
Shy Tuttle landed on a helmet, and that's the truth. Um, yeah, and the thing too with some of the Butch guys is like, I think under better coaching, they would have ended up as better NFL players. A lot of them, just because you think about the guys that really made it out of that era, like Derek Barnett, he's been fine in the NFL. I wouldn't say he's been incredible, And Alvin Kamara is really the only one that I can say has had a pretty nice NFL career
And he
overall.
wasn't even starting for
No,
for
he
Butch.
wasn't even starting at Tennessee. He was just a rotational piece here, and it's like we knew what this guy could be at Tennessee. He just never got to blossom into that role.
Every time that he stepped on the field, he would do crazy, insane things. And it's like, no, let's bring Jalen Hurd back and give him 30 carries.
Not that there's anything wrong with Jalen Hurd getting carries.
No, because he was good too.
He would have been Tennessee's all-time leading rusher, but there was evidently a situation there with him and Butch Jones as well.
Which I don't know if you've read into that or not, though, but it's very interesting. Like, because from what I've heard, he was trying to change positions and everything because he didn't see a future playing running back in the NFL, at his size and stuff. So, like, I heard that's why he lost all the weight, went to Baylor, tried to play receiver, and he did go to the NFL.
Yeah.
To be fair, but
it was brief with the 49ers, right?
I think so, but he probably should have stayed at running back or maybe moved to tight end or something.